Born just before the Civil War and dying just as the civil rights movement was getting started, this saint's story contains everything from facing oppression and staring down hate groups to dynamite and tornadoes. This is the story of Saint Katharine Drexel. Now, Jesus warned us that it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven. But with God, all things are possible. Saint Katharine Drexel shows us how it's done. In order to truly appreciate this saint, I think it's important to understand two major facts about her upbringing. One, she came from an extremely wealthy family. I cannot state this strongly enough. Very, very, very wealthy. Two, the time in which she lived was in some very serious and violent political and racial turmoil. Let's set the stage. Katharine Drexel was born in Philadelphia, and her father, Francis Anthony Drexel, was one of the wealthiest men in the country during what is now known as the Gilded Age. Although there was no Forbes list to rank the wealthiest of the wealthy back then, he was likely among the top 10 wealthiest men, below people like William Henry Vanderbilt, John D. Rockefeller, and Andrew Carnegie, but above his business partner, J.P. Morgan. Yep, that J.P. Morgan. But back then, the company was known as Drexel Morgan and Company. We're talking some serious money here. In today's terms, when ranking the richest people in the country, and again, they didn't have ranks back then, but we're kind of talking, well, not Elon Musk level, but more like a Mark Zuckerberg. Katharine was 26 years old when her father died, and she inherited about $7 million from the estate, which is a lot even today. But taking into consideration inflation, let's see, carry the one. This is how I do math, you guys. That's worth about $240 million today. Yes, almost $250 million. So that covers just how wealthy this woman was. How about the political climate? The political climate. So that covers just how wealthy this woman was. But how about the political climate in which she lived? Katharine was just 2 years old when the Civil War broke out, and just 6 when President Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. She was 17 when the Battle of Little Bighorn occurred, and at the time of her inheritance, the Native American tribes were being pushed west into reservations on some of the most unfriendly climates the country had to offer. And let's not forget the part that is often forgotten in our history books regarding this time period. Catholics were fiercely hated and distrusted. All right, so we've set the stage for Katharine Drexel in 1885. She's just come into a large amount of money. What is she going to do? But before we get into that, I have a favor to ask you. This video is going to contain some sensitive information, and the algorithm is probably not going to like that much. You can help me spread stories like this by subscribing to my channel, liking and commenting on this video, and of course, sharing it with anyone who you think might be interested. You can also head over to journeytosainthood.com to check out some ways to support the channel. Thanks a ton. And now, let's get back to the incredible story of St. Katharine Drexel. Katharine and her sisters were left with a lot of money, but they were still grieving the loss of their father. So they went to Rome. The family had so much wealth and influence that Katharine actually got a private audience with Pope Leo XIII himself. Having recently visited the reservations out west, She taught him about the indigenous people of the US, how they lived in poverty. She told him how much need there was among them, as well as the Black communities, and asked him to send more missionaries. Katharine was completely blindsided by his response. Why not, my child? Yourself become a missionary. She ran out of the room in tears, sobbing with fear and her chest aching with anxiety. But after a few months of contemplating what this would mean for her and the lifestyle she was so accustomed to, she decided that writing large checks to charity from Philadelphia just wasn't enough. She wanted to become a nun. She went to a family friend and her spiritual director, who also just happened to be the new and first bishop of the Diocese of Omaha, Nebraska. Seriously, this girl had some friends in high places. And told him of her plan. He was like, I don't know. I don't think that's such a good idea. He thought her life of luxury had made her too soft to be a nun. She was too rich. Wait a minute. This reminds me of something. We need to go back. There he goes again. You guys, watch out for the priest. No, not that one.
Timothy 2:12. You are a socialist.
You have no right to tell me what to do with my body.
Pinko commies just want to see the...
Definitely not that one. Oh, here it is. It's at this point that Rose wanted to enter the monastery of St. Mary of the Roses, but they wouldn't let her in due to her poverty. The girl was converting people, raising people from the dead, predicting the deaths of very important people, and standing in flames for hours. All by the power of God. Who cares if she's poor? Too poor, too rich. Anyway, after many letters back and forth, Katharine was able to convince the bishop that this was her vocation, and not just a spoiled rich girl's whim. She would eventually take her vows and start the Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament. Their mission was to help and educate the very communities that were facing oppression from those in power. And let me tell you, when you stand up for the oppressed in America during this era, the people in power don't just stand by and watch. They fight back. Right around the time that the Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament was launched and that she would take her vows, the frontier exploded. On December 29th, 1890, the U.S. Army slaughtered over 250 Lakota men, women, and children at the Wounded Knee Massacre in South Dakota. Katharine had financed the construction of a mission school on that exact reservation. During the bloodshed, her school became a literal sanctuary, sheltering terrified families fleeing the Calvary. Months later, Mother Katharine braved the dangerous aftermath and traveled straight to Pine Ridge to walk the blood-stained ground herself. It didn't end up scaring her off. The violence did not deter her. It galvanized her. She went on to build over 50 schools for Black and Native American children, including Xavier University in New Orleans. But because she was a white woman using millions of dollars to systematically dismantle segregation and oppression, she became a prime target for white supremacists. In Pennsylvania, segregationists actually planted a stick of dynamite at the construction site of her new convent. When she moved her mission to Texas, the Ku Klux Klan sent a physical letter to her sisters, threatening to bomb their church and tar and feather their pastor if he didn't shut the school down. But Katharine Drexel did not flinch. The sisters took the threat to prayer, and just days later, a violent tornado touched down and completely leveled the local KK headquarters. Coincidence? Anyway, the threats stopped. But then local politicians tried to use bureaucratic warfare next, rewriting zoning laws to make her schools illegal. Katharine simply used secret third-party buyers to buy up land right up under their noses. She was a spiritual powerhouse with the tactical mind of a chess master. On March 3rd, 1955, at the age of 96, after living a remarkable life, Mother Katharine drew her last breath. Looking at St. Katharine Drexel's life challenges me, and I think it should challenge all of us. Obviously, most of us don't have $250 million over in the corner or in a bank account to give away. But St. Katharine Drexel's legacy isn't actually about the size of her inheritance, which, don't get me wrong, was substantial. Her legacy is about her radical willingness to say yes when God called her out of her comfort zone. It's about looking at the injustice, poverty, and suffering around us and choosing to get our hands dirty instead of just writing it off as someone else's problem. So how can we emulate her today? Maybe it's standing up for someone who's being marginalized or forgotten in your own community. Maybe it's sacrificing some of your own comfort, your time, your resources to serve those in need. We all have a wealth of something, whether it be our talents, our time, or our treasure. And St. Katharine Drexel shows us the absolute miracles that happen when we stop holding on to that comfort and completely surrender it to God. Before starting my research on this saint, I had heard her name. I knew she was American, but that was about the extent of it. You guys, the more I learned about this saint, the more floored I was about what she faced and what she was able to accomplish. This is why I have this channel, to learn about Catholicism, the people within our church, and then to share what I learn with all of you. So, if you want to learn more about Catholicism in America, be sure to click on this. I think you might be surprised by what you learn. Thanks for watching. St. Katharine Drexel, pray for us.